Ikväll, det första av 2 program.
We face a number of important issues around privacy, safety, and democracy.
Som granskar Facebook.
We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and it was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
Vi hör personal.
It's possible that we haven't been as fast as we needed to be.
We've been too slow to act on.
We didn't see it fast.
I think we were too slow.
Och före detta anställda.
I mean, everybody was pretty upset that we hadn't caught it during the election.
Om hur Facebook används som vapen mot demokratin.
I don't think any of us, Mark included, appreciated how much of an effect we might have had.
Reportern James Jacoby synar mannen som ville föra världen samman.
Is he not recognizing the importance of his platform?
He didn't understand what he had built.
Är han också ansvarig för splittringen?
There was something wrong systemically with the Facebook algorithms. In effect, polarization was the key to the model.
Dokument utifrån. Facebook. Vän eller fiende?
Are we good?
Should I put the beer down?
No, actually I'm gonna mention the beer. Hard at work. So I'm here in Palo Alto, California, chilling with Mark Zuckerberg of the Facebook.com, and we're drinking out of a keg of Heineken because what are we celebrating? Mark?
She's got 3 million users.
11, 12, 13. Tell us, simply what Facebook is.
I think Facebook is an online directory for colleges. I realized that because I didn't have people's information, I needed to make it interesting enough so that people would want to use the site and want to put their information up. So launched it at Harvard, and within a couple of weeks, 2/3 of the school had signed up. So we were like, all right, this is pretty sweet. Let's just go all out. And it's just interesting seeing how it evolves. We have a sweet office.
Yeah. Well, show us around the crib.
No, I disagree. I think it's...
We didn't want cubicles, so we got IKEA kitchen tables instead. And I thought that kind of went along with our whole vibe here.
Fridge.
Some stuff. There's some beer down there.
You guys had how many people work for you?
It's actually 20 right now.
Did you get this shot? This one here? The lady riding pit bull.
Oh, nice. Shot right there.
Alright, it's really all I got. That was cool. And where are you taking Facebook at this point?
I mean, there doesn't necessarily have to be more.
From the early days, Mark had this vision of connecting the whole world. So if Google was about providing you access to all the information, Facebook was about connecting all the people.
Can you just say your name and pronounce it so nobody messes it up and they have it on tape?
Sure. It's Mark Zuckerberg.
Great.
It was not crazy. Somebody was going to connect all those people. Why not him?
We have our Facebook fellow. We have Mark Zuckerberg.
I have the pleasure of introducing Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook.com.
Yo.
When Mark Zuckerberg was at Harvard, he was fascinated by hacker culture, this notion that software programmers could do things that would shock the world.
And a lot of times people are just too careful. I think it's more useful to make things happen and then apologize later than it is to make sure that you dot all your I's now and then just not get stuff done.
So it was a little bit of a renegade philosophy and a disrespect for authority that led to the Facebook motto, move fast and break things.
Never heard of Facebook?
Our school went crazy for the Facebook.
Creates its own world that you get sucked into.
We started adding things like status updates and photos and groups and apps. When we first launched, we were hoping for, maybe 400, 500 people.
That's the first 100 million and the next 100 million.
Cool.
So you're motivated by what?
Building things that, change the world and in a way that it needs to be changed.
Who is Barack Obama? The answer is right there on my Facebook page.
Mr. Zuckerberg.
Sup, Zuck?
In those days, move fast and break things didn't seem to be sociopathic.
If you're building a product that people love, you can make a lot of mistakes.
It wasn't that they intended to do harm so much as they were unconcerned about the possibility that harm would result.
So just to be clear, you're not going to sell or share any of the information on Facebook.
We're not going to share people's information except for with the people that they've asked for it to be shared.
Technology optimism was so deeply ingrained in the value system and in the beliefs of people in Silicon Valley.
We're here for a hackathon, so let's get started.
That they'd come to believe it as akin to the law of gravity, that of course technology makes the world a better place. It always had, it always will. And that assumption essentially masked a set of changes that were going on in the culture that were very dangerous.
From KXJZ in Sacramento.
For Monday, June 27th.
Mark Zuckerbergs ambition att koppla samman världen skulle få långtgående konsekvenser inom politik, privatliv och teknik. Reportern James Jacoby har undersökt de varningsklockor som ringde långt innan problemen blev allmänt kända.
It was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
Men för dem på insidan började det med en berusande vision som blev till en lukrativ affärsidé.
Well, the one thing that Mark Zuckerberg has been so good at is being incredibly clear and compelling about the mission that Facebook has always had.
Facebook's mission is to give people the power to share. Give people the power to share in order to make the world more open and connected. More open and connected. Open and connected. More open and connected.
How pervasive a mission was that inside of the company? Give me a sense of that.
And it was something that, you know, Mark doesn't just say when we do, you know, ordered calisthenics in the morning and we yell the mission to each other, right? We would actually say it to each other, you know, when Mark wasn't around.
And that was a mission that you really believed in.
How could you not? How exciting. What if connecting the world actually delivered a promise that we've been looking for to genuinely make the world a better place?
Was there ever a point where there was questions internally about this mission being naive optimism?
I think the short answer is completely yes. And I think that's why we loved it. Especially in a moment like when we crossed 1 billion monthly active users for the first time. And Mark's, the way I recall Mark at the time, I remember thinking, I don't think Mark is going to stop until he gets to everybody.
I think some of us had an early understanding that we were creating, in some ways, a digital nation state. This was the greatest experiment in free speech in human history.
There was a sense inside the company that we are building the future, and there was a real focus on youth being a good thing. It was not a particularly diverse workforce. It was very much the sort of Harvard, Stanford, Ivy League group of people who were largely in their 20s.
I was a big believer in the company. Like I knew that it was going to be a paradigm shifting thing. There's definitely this feeling of everything for the company, of this, you know, world stirring vision. Everyone more or less dressed with the same fleece and swag with logo on it, posters on the wall that look somewhat Orwellian. But of course, you know, in an upbeat way, obviously. And you know, some of the slogans are pretty well known. Move fast and break things. Fortune favors the bold. What would you do if you weren't afraid? You know, it was always this sort of rousing rhetoric that would push you to go further.
Antonio Garcia Martinez var produktchef på Facebooks reklamavdelning. Han är en av 8 tidigare anställda som ställt upp på filmade intervjuer.
In Silicon Valley, there's almost a mafioso code of silence that you're not supposed to talk about the business in any but the most flattering way, right? Basically, you can't say anything, you know, measured or truthful about the business. And I think, as perhaps with Facebook, it's kind of arrived at the point in which it's so important, it needs to be a little bit more transparent about how it works. Like, let's stop the little bullshit parade about everyone in Silicon Valley, you know, disrupting this and improving the world, right? It's in many ways a business like any other. It's just kind of more exciting and impactful.
2007 hade Zuckerberg gjort klart att målsättningen var global expansion.
Almost a year ago, when we were first discussing how to let everyone in the world into Facebook, I remember someone said to me, Mark, we already have nearly every college student in the US on Facebook. It's incredible that we were even able to do that, but no one gets a second trick like that. Well, let's take a look at how we did.
What was the growth team about? What did you do at Growth?
The story of growth has really been about making Facebook available to people that wanted it but couldn't have access to it.
Naomi Gleit är en av 5 talespersoner som Facebook har hänvisat till. Hon tillhör företagets innersta krets.
One of my first projects was expanding Facebook to high school students. I worked on translating Facebook into over 100 languages. When I joined, there were 1 million users, and now there's over 2 billion people using Facebook every month.
Some of the problems that have reared their head with Facebook over the past couple of years seem to have been caused in some ways by this exponential growth.
So I think Mark has said this, that we have been slow to really understand the ways in which Facebook might be used for bad things. We've been really focused on the good things.
So who are all these new users?
The growth team had tons of engineers figuring out how you could make the new user experience more engaging, how you could figure out how to get more people to sign up. Everyone was focused on growth.
Give people the power to share.
Det som höll de nya användarnas intresse vid liv kom att bli Facebooks viktigaste verktyg.
Newsfeed.
Nyheter. Ett till synes oändligt flöde av artiklar, bilder och uppdateringar som delas av vänner, annonsörer och andra.
It analyzes all the information available to each user, and it actually computes what's going to be the most interesting piece of information, then publishes a little story for them.
It's your personalized newspaper. It's the New York Times of you, Channel U. It is, your customized, optimized vision on the world.
Men det som visades i användarnas flöde var inte slumpmässigt utan valdes av en matematisk formel, en algoritm.
The stories are ranked in terms of what's going to be the most important, and we design a lot of algorithms so we can produce interesting content for you.
The goal of the newsfeed is to provide you, the user, with the content on Facebook that you most want to see. It is designed to make you want to keep scrolling, keep looking, keep liking.
That's the key. That's the secret sauce. That's why we're worth X billion.
Gilla-knappen gjorde det möjligt att samla in stora mängder av användarnas personliga data och den blev en ovärderlig tillgång.
At the time, we were a little bit skeptical about the like button. We were concerned. And as it turned out, our intuition was just dead wrong. And what we found was that the like button acted as a social lubricant. And of course, it was also driving this flywheel of engagement, that people felt like they were heard on the platform whenever they shared something.
Connect to it by liking it.
And it became a driving force for the product.
It was incredibly important because it allowed us to understand who are the people that you care more about, that cause you to react, and who are the businesses, the pages, the other interests on Facebook that are important to you. And that gave us a degree of constantly increasing understanding about people.
Newsfeed got off to a bit of a rocky start, and now our users love Newsfeed. They love it.
Utvecklingen drevs på av att lagstiftningen inte höll internetföretag ansvariga för allt innehåll som publicerades.
So Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act is the provision which allows the internet economy to grow and thrive. And Facebook is one of the principal beneficiaries of this provision. It says, don't hold this internet company responsible if some idiot says something violent on the site. Don't hold the internet company responsible if somebody publishes something that creates conflict, that violates the law. It's the quintessential provision that allows them to say, don't blame us.
Så Facebook fick utforma egna spelregler och företaget tog ett avgörande beslut.
We took a very libertarian perspective here. We allowed people to speak. And we said, if you're going to incite violence, that's clearly out of bounds. We're going to kick you off immediately. But we're going to allow people to go right up to the edge. And we're going to allow other people to respond. We had to set up some ground rules. Basic decency, no nudity and no violent or hateful speech. And after that, we felt some reluctance to interpose our value system on this worldwide community that was growing.
Was there not a concern then that it could become sort of a place of just utter confusion, that you have lies that are given the same weight as truths, and that it kind of just becomes a place where truth becomes completely obfuscated?
No. We relied on what we thought were the public's common sense and common decency to police the site.
Den hållningen fick snart följder i den verkliga världen, långt ifrån Silicon Valley där Zuckerbergs optimistiska vision växt fram. Den arabiska våren hade nått Egypten. Rörelsen växte på en Facebook-sida som protesterade mot Mubarak-regimens övergrepp.
Not that I was thinking that this Facebook page was going to be effective. I just did not want to look back and say that happened and I just didn't do anything about it.
Vid den här tiden arbetade Wael Ghonim för Google i Mellanöstern.
In just 3 days, over 100,000 people joined the page. Throughout the next few months, the page was growing until what happened in Tunisia.
Events in Tunisia have captured the attention of viewers around the world, and a lot of it was happening online.
It took just 28 days to the fall of the regime.
And it just created, for me, a moment of, maybe we can do this. And I just posted an event calling for a revolution in 10 days. Like, we should all get to the street and we should all bring down Mubarak.
Organized by a group of online activists.
We're calling it the Facebook revolution.
På bara några dagar fyllde Ghonims upprop Kairos gator med hundratusentals demonstranter. Och 18 dagar senare
President Mohammed Hosni Mubarak has decided to step down.
It's generally acknowledged that Ghonim's Facebook page first sparked the protests.
There was a moment that you were being interviewed on CNN.
Yeah, I remember that.
First Tunisia, now Egypt. What's next?
Ask Facebook.
Ask what?
Facebook.
Facebook.
The technology was, for me, the enabler. I would not have been able to engage with others. I would not have been able to propagate my ideas to others without social media, without Facebook.
You're giving Facebook a lot of credit for this.
Yeah, for sure. I want to meet Mark Zuckerberg one day and thank him, actually.
Hey, you ever think that this could have an impact on revolution?
You know, my own opinion is that it would be extremely arrogant for any specific technology company to claim any meaningful role in those. But I do think that the overall trend that's at play here, which is people being able to share what they want with the people who they want, is an extremely powerful thing, right? And we're kind of fundamentally rewiring the world from the ground up, and it starts with people.
They were relatively restrained externally about taking credit for it, but internally they were, I would say, very happy to take credit for the idea that social media is being used to affect democratic change.
Activists and civil society leaders would just come up to me and say, you know, wow, we couldn't have done this without you guys. Government officials, you know, would say, does Facebook really realize how much you guys are changing our societies?
It felt like Facebook had extraordinary power, and power for good.
Men medan Facebook hyllades tog situationen på Egyptens gator och på Facebook en ny vändning.
Following the revolution, things went into a much worse direction than what we have anticipated.
There's a complete split between the civil community and those who are calling for an Islamic state.
What was happening in Egypt was polarization.
Deadly clashes between Christians and military police.
The Brotherhood cannot rule this country.
And all these voices started to clash. And the environment on social media breeded that kind of clash, like that polarization, rewarded it.
When the Arab Spring happened, I know that a lot of people in Silicon Valley thought our technologies helped bring freedom to people, which was true. But there's a twist to this, which is Facebook's newsfeed algorithm.
If you increase the tone of your posts against your opponents, you're going to get more distribution. Because we tend to be more tribal, so if I call my opponents names, my tribe is happy and celebrating. Yes, do it. Like, comment, share, so more people end up seeing it, because the algorithm is going to say, oh, okay, that's engaging content, people like it, show it to more people.
There were also other groups of thugs who followed the pattern of sectarian violence.
The hardest part for me was seeing the tool that brought us together, tearing us apart. These tools are just enablers for whomever. They don't separate between what's good and bad. They just look at engagement metrics.
Gonim blev själv offer för det mönstret.
There was a page, it had like hundreds of thousands of followers. All what it did was creating fake statements. And I was a victim of that page. They wrote statements about me insulting the army, which puts me at serious risk because that is not something I said. I was extremely naive in a way I don't like actually now, thinking that these are liberating tools. It's the spread of misinformation, fake news in Egypt in 2011.
Han pratade med bekanta på Facebook och andra företag om vad som pågick.
I tried to talk to people who are in Silicon Valley, but I feel like it was not being heard.
What were you trying to express to people in Silicon Valley at the time?
It's very serious. Whatever that you are building has massive, serious, unintended consequences on the lives of people on this planet. And you are not investing enough in trying to make sure that what you are building does not go in the wrong way. And it's very hard to be in their position. No matter how they try and move and change things, there will be always unintended consequences.
Activists in my region were on the front lines of, spotting corners of Facebook that the rest of the world, the rest of the company wasn't yet talking about. Because in a company that's built off numbers and metrics and measurements, anecdotes sometimes got lost along the way. And that was always a real challenge and always bothered me.
Elizabeth Linder, som var Facebooks representant i regionen, varnades också från regeringshåll.
So many country representatives were expressing to me a huge concern about the ability of rumors to spread on Facebook and what do you do about that?
How did you respond to that at the time?
We didn't have a solution for it. And so the best that I could do is report back to headquarters that this is something that I was hearing on the ground.
And what sort of response would you get from headquarters?
It's impossible to be specific about that because it was always just kind of this is what I'm hearing, this is what's going on. But I think in a company where the people that could have actually, had an impact on making those decisions are not necessarily seen it firsthand.
I think everything that happened after the Arab Spring should have been a warning sign to Facebook.
Zeynep Tufekci är forskare och programmerare. Hon hade också varnat Facebook och andra sociala medieföretag.
These companies were terribly understaffed, in over their heads in terms of the important role they were playing. Like all of a sudden, you're the public sphere in Egypt. So I kept starting to talk to my friends at these companies and saying, you have to staff up. And you have to put in large amounts of people who speak the language, who understand the culture, who understand the complexities of wherever you happen to operate.
Men Facebook var inte byggt för att moderera den mängd innehåll som kom från alla områden man expanderade till.
I think no one at any of these companies in Silicon Valley has the resources for this kind of scale. You had queues of work for people to go through and hundreds of employees who would spend all day, every day clicking yes, no, keep, take down, keep up, making judgment calls, snap judgment calls about does it violate our terms of service? Does it violate our standards of decency? What are the consequences of the speech? So you have these fabulously talented group of mostly 20-somethings who are deciding what speech matters. And they're doing it in real time, all day, every day.
Isn't that scary?
It's terrifying, right? The responsibility was awesome. No one could ever have predicted how fast Facebook would grow. The trajectory of growth of the user base and of the issues was like this, and of all staffing throughout the company was like this. The company was trying to make money. It was trying to keep costs down. It had to be a going concern. It had to be a revenue-generating thing, or it would cease to exist.
Faktum är att man förberedde för att ta Facebook till nästa nivå. Börsen.
I'm David Ebersman, Facebook's CFO. Thank you for taking the time to consider an investment in Facebook.
The social media giant hopes to raise $5 billion.
The pressure heading into the IPO, of course, was to prove that Facebook was a great business. Otherwise, we'd have no shareholders.
Facebook, is it worth $100 billion? Should it be valued at that?
Utmaningen var att övertyga investerare och annonsörer om vinstpotentialen i Facebooks största tillgång. Informationen om användarna.
Mark, great as he was at vision and product, he had very little experience in building a big advertising business.
Den uppgiften fick Sheryl Sandberg, som gjort samma sak på Google.
At Facebook, we have a broad mission. We want to make the world more open and connected.
The business model we see today was created by Sheryl Sandberg and the team she built at Facebook, many of whom had been with her at Google.
Offentligt hade Sandberg och Zuckerberg tonat ner mängden data man samlade in och framhävt hur användarnas data skyddades.
If I go over there, we are focused on privacy. We care the most about privacy. Our business model is by far the most privacy friendly to consumers.
That's our mission, right? I mean, we have to do that because if people feel like they don't have control over how they're sharing things, then we're failing them.
It really is the point that the only things Facebook knows about you are things you've done and told us.
Men internt ledde Sandberg Facebook i en helt annan riktning.
There was a meeting, I think it was in March of 2012, in which, it was everyone who built stuff inside ads, myself among them. And, she basically recited the reality, which is revenue was flattening. It wasn't slow, it wasn't declining, but it wasn't growing nearly as fast as investors would have guessed. So she basically said, we have to do something. You people have to do something. And so there was a big effort to basically pull out all the stops and start experimenting way more aggressively. The reality is that, Facebook has a lot of personal data, your chat with your girlfriend or boyfriend, your drunk party photos from college, etc. The reality is that none of that is actually valuable to any marketer. They want commercially interesting data. What products did you take off the shelf at Best Buy? What did you buy in your last grocery run? Did it include diapers? Do you have kids? Are you a head of household? Right? It's things like that. Things that exist in the outside world that just do not exist inside Facebook at all.
Sandbergs arbetsgrupp började utveckla nya sätt att samla in data från användarna, vad de än gjorde på nätet och när de inte använde nätet alls.
And so there's this extraordinary thing that happens that doesn't get much attention at the time. About 4 or 5 months before the IPO, the company announces its first relationship with data broker companies that most Americans aren't at all aware of, that go out and buy up data about each and every one of us. What we buy, where we shop, where we live, what our traffic patterns are, what our families are doing, what our likes are, what magazines we read, data that the consumer doesn't even know that's being collected about them because it's being collected from the rest of their lives by companies they don't know. And it's now being shared with Facebook so that Facebook can target ads back to the user.
What Facebook does is profile you. If you're on Facebook, it's collecting everything you do. If you're off Facebook, it's using tracking pixels to collect what you're browsing. And for its micro-targeting to work, for its business model to work, it has to remain a surveillance machine.
They made a product that was a better tool for advertisers than anything that had ever come before it.
And of course, the ad revenue spikes. That change alone, I think, is a sea change in the way the company felt about its future and the direction it was headed.
Sparapani var kritisk till hur Facebook utvecklades och slutade innan samarbetet med datamäklare inleddes. Omfattningen av Facebooks datainsamling var i stort sett okänd tills en österrikisk juridikstudent av en slump mötte en av företagets jurister.
I kind of wanted a semester off, so I actually went to California to Santa Clara University in the Silicon Valley.
I want to welcome
Someone from Facebook was a guest speaker explaining to us basically how they deal with European privacy law. And the general understanding was you can do whatever you want to do in Europe because they do have data protection laws, but they don't really enforce them at all. So I sent an email to Facebook saying I want to have a copy of all my data. So I got from Facebook about 1,200 pages, and I read through it. In my personal file, I think the most sensitive information was my messages. For example, a friend of mine was in the closed unit of a psychological hospital in Vienna. I deleted all these messages, but all of them came back up. And you have messages about, love life and sexuality, and all of that is kept. Facebook tries to give you the impression that you share this only with friends. The reality is Facebook is always looking. There is a data category called last location, where they store where they think you've been the last time. If you tag people in pictures, there's GPS location, so by that they know which person has been at what place at what time. Back on the servers, there's like a treasure trove that's like 10 times as big as anything we ever see on the screen.
Samtidigt som Facebook utökade datainsamlingen inför börsnoteringen gjorde Schrems 22 anmälningar till Dataskyddsmyndigheten på Irland, där Facebook har sitt internationella huvudkontor.
And they had 20 people at the time over a little supermarket. In a small town, it's called Port Darlington. It's 5,000 people in the middle of nowhere. And they were meant to regulate Google or Facebook or LinkedIn and all of them.
Schrems anklagade Facebook för att inte följa europeisk dataskyddslagstiftning i sin hantering av personlig information.
And after we filed these complaints, that was when actually Facebook reached out, basically say, let's sit down and have a coffee and talk about all of this. So we actually had a kind of notable meeting that was in 2012 at the airport in Vienna. But the interesting thing is that most of these points, they simply didn't have an answer. You totally saw that their pants were down. However, at a certain point, I just got a text message from the Data Protection Authority saying they're not available to speak to me anymore. That was how this procedure basically ended. Facebook knew that the system plays in their favor. So even if you violate the law, the reality is it's very likely not going to be enforced.
Facebook tillbakavisade anklagelsen och hävdade att man tog europeisk lagstiftning på allvar. Man gick med på att göra sin policy tydligare och sluta lagra vissa typer av data.
So, without further ado, Mark Zuckerberg.
I Silicon Valley hade teknikjournalister också konfronterat Facebook om hur de hanterade användarnas information.
Privacy was my number one concern back then. So when we were thinking about talking to Mark, the platform was an issue. There were a bunch of privacy violations. And that was what we wanted to talk to him about.
Is there a level of privacy that just has to apply to everyone, or do you think, you might have a view of this is what privacy means to Mark Zuckerberg, so this is what it's going to mean at Facebook?
Yeah, people can control this right themselves. Simple control has always been one of the important parts of using Facebook. And
Kara Swisher har bevakat Facebook sedan starten. Hon intervjuade Zuckerberg när företaget hade ändrat standardinställningen för sekretess.
So do you feel like it's a backlash, or do you feel like you're violating people's privacy?
And when we started to ask questions, he became increasingly uncomfortable.
I think the issue is you became the head of the biggest social networking company on the planet.
Yeah, no, so I think
everything
the
you said
interesting
then
thing is that, so I started this when I was, started working on this type of stuff when I was 18.
So he started to sweat quite a lot, and then a lot, and then a real lot. So this kind of thing where, like broadcast news where it was dripping down, or Tom Cruise in that Mission Impossible. It was going to his chin and dripping off.
A lot of stuff changed as we've gone from building this project in a dorm room.
And it wasn't stopping. And I was noticing that one of the people from Facebook was like, oh my God, and I was trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happened along the way. I think, there were real learning points and turning points along the way in terms of building things.
He was in such distress, and I know it sounds awful, but I felt like his mother, like, oh my God, this poor guy is gonna faint. I thought he was gonna faint. I did.
Want to take off the hoodie?
No. Whoa.
Well, different people think different things. He's told us he had the flu. I felt like he had a panic attack is what happened.
Maybe I should take off the hoodie.
Take off the hoodie.
Go ahead.
You want to? Okay. Of course not. That is a warm hoodie.
Yeah, no, it's a thick hoodie. It's a company hoodie. We print our mission on the inside.
What? Oh my
really?
God, the inside of the hoodie, everybody. Take a moment. What is it? Making the
world more open and connected.
Oh my God, it's like a secret cult.
From that interview and from others, I mean, how would you have characterized Mark's view of privacy?
Well, I don't know if he thought about that. It's kind of interesting because they're very loose on it. They have a viewpoint that this helps you as the user to get more information, and they will deliver up more service. That's the whole ethos of Silicon Valley, by the way. If you only give us everything, we will give you free stuff. There is a trade being made between the user and Facebook. The question is, are they protecting that data?
Thank you, Mark.
Det var fritt fram för Facebook att ta fram en egen standard eftersom USA saknade övergripande dataskyddslagstiftning för den här typen av datainsamling. Men 2010 reagerade FTC, det amerikanska konsumentverket.
In most other parts of the world, privacy is a right. In the United States, not exactly.
David Vladek utredde om Facebook vilseledde användarna. Han uppdagade att företaget gjort deras information tillgänglig för så kallade tredjepartsutvecklare som byggde spel och appar för plattformen.
And our view was that, it's fine for Facebook to collect this data, but sharing this data with third parties without consent was a no-no.
But at Facebook, of course, we believe that our users should have complete control of their information.
The heart of our cases against companies like Facebook was deceptive conduct. That is, they did not make it clear to consumers the extent to which their personal data would be shared with third parties.
FTC befarade att data kunde missbrukas eftersom Facebook inte höll reda på hur den användes.
They had, in my view, no real control over the third-party app developers that had access to the site. They could have been anyone. There was no due diligence. Anyone, essentially, who could develop a third-party app could get access to the site.
It could have been somebody working for a foreign adversary.
Certainly. It could have been somebody working, for the Russian government.
Facebook nådde en förlikning med FTC och gick med på att rätta till problemen.
Was there an expectation at the time of the consent order that they would staff up to ensure that their users' data was not leaking out all over the place?
Yes. That was the point of this provision of the consent order that required them to identify risks to personal privacy and to plug those gaps quickly.
Men inför den stundande börsnoteringen hade Facebook press på sig att fortsätta tjäna pengar på användarinformationen.
9 months into my first job in tech, I ended up in an interesting situation where, because I had been the main person who was working on privacy issues with respect to Facebook platform, which had many, many, many privacy issues. It was a real hornet's nest. And I ended up in a meeting with a bunch of the most senior executives at the company, and they went around the room and they basically said, well, who's in charge? And the answer was me, because no one else really knew anything about it. You'd think that a company of the size and importance of Facebook, would have really focused and had a team of people and, very senior people working on these issues, but it ended up being me.
What did you think about that at the time?
I was horrified. I didn't think I was qualified.
Parakilas undersökte hur den data som Facebook delade med tredjepartsutvecklare kunde missbrukas.
My concerns at the time were that I knew that there were all these malicious actors who would do a wide range of bad things given the opportunity, given the ability to target people based on this information that Facebook had. So I started thinking through, what are the worst case scenarios of what people could do with this data? And I showed some of the kinds of bad actors that might try to attack. And I shared it out with a number of senior executives. And the response was muted, I would say. I got the sense that this just wasn't their priority. They weren't that concerned about the vulnerabilities that the company was creating. They were concerned about revenue growth and user growth.
And that was expressed to you, or that's something that you just gleaned from the interactions?
From the lack of a response, I gathered that, yeah.
And how senior were the senior executives?
Very senior, like among the top 5 executives of the company.
Enligt Facebook tog man FTCs föreläggande på allvar och hade många som jobbade med att förbättra dataskyddet. Men för Parakilas och andra var det tydligt att affärsmodellen fortfarande var drivkraften och 2012 lämnade Parakilas företaget.
I think there was a certain arrogance there that led to a lot of bad long-term decision making. The long-term ramifications of those decisions was not well thought through at all. And it's got us to where we are right now.
Your visionary, your founder, your leader, Mark, please come to the podium.
I maj 2012 börsnoterades Facebook.
The world's largest social network managed to raise more than $18 billion, making it the largest technology IPO in U.S. history.
People literally lined up in Times Square around the NASDAQ board.
We'll ring this bell and we'll get back to work.
With founder Mark Zuckerberg ringing the NASDAQ opening bell remotely from Facebook headquarters in Menlo Park, California.
Mark Zuckerberg var nu god för uppskattningsvis $15 miljarder. Facebook förvärvade Instagram och WhatsApp och var snart ett av världens högst värderade företag.
Going public is an important milestone in our history. But here's the thing. Our mission isn't to be a public company. Our mission is to make the world more open and connected.
Inom Facebook såg man affärsmodellen som byggde på att samla in allt mer data som en framgång. Men forskare inom försvarsdepartementet såg något annat.
The concern was that social media could be used for really nefarious purposes. The opportunities for disinformation, for deception, for everything else are enormous. Bad guys or anybody could use this for any kind of purpose in a way that wasn't possible before. That's the concern.
And what did you see as a potential threat of people giving up their data?
That they're opening themselves up to being targets for manipulation. I can manipulate you to buy something. I can manipulate you to vote for somebody. It's like putting a target, painting a big target on your front, on your chest, and on your back and saying, here I am, come and manipulate me. I've given you everything you need. Have at it. That's the threat.
Waltzman berättar att Facebook inte ville bidra med information till hans forskning. 2012 till 2015 publicerade han och hans kollegor över 200 artiklar och rapporter om farorna de såg med sociala medier.
What I saw over the years of the program was that the medium enables you to really take disinformation and turn it into a serious weapon.
Was your research revealing a potential threat to national security?
Sure, when you looked at how it actually worked, you see where the opportunities are for manipulation, mass manipulation.
And is there an assumption there that people are easily misled?
Yes. Yes, people are easily misled if you do it the right way. For example, when you see people forming into communities, okay, what's called filter bubbles. Now I'm going to exploit that to craft my message so that it resonates most exactly with that community. And I'll do that for every single community. It would be pretty easy. It would be pretty easy to set up a fake account or a large number of fake accounts embedded in different communities and use them to disseminate propaganda.
At an enormous scale?
Yes. Well, that's why it's a serious weapon, because it's at an enormous scale. It's the scale that makes it a weapon.
Och så gjorde man redan på en propagandafabrik i ryska Sankt Petersburg. Internet Research Agency. Hundratals anställda använde sociala medier i kampen mot den antiryska regeringen i Ukraina. Vitalij Bespaljov säger att han var en av dem.
Can you explain what is the Internet Research Agency?
То есть это компания, которая делает медиаресурсы, которые есть в данный момент. То есть это фейковые аккаунты, фейковые иллюстрации, то есть все то, что влияет на умы людей. Во время моей работы там за 3,5 месяца не звучало ни разу фраза, что вот мы там правительственные или мы кремлевские. Слышал вообще об этом. Ну, как бы, хотя все это понимали, наверное, все люди это осознавали.
Was the main intention to make the Ukrainian government look bad?
Да. Это было именно так, если мы говорим про отдел, связанный с Украиной. Да, то есть в плохом свете Петр Порошенко, все остальное правительство, военные силы, ну и все остальное. Что ты приходишь на работу, перед тобой лежит пачка сим-карт, очень много сим-карт для сотовой связи, и старый телефон. Быстро делаешь аккаунт, берешь любую фотографию любого человека, ставишь, помещать ссылки на новости, то есть распространять их по разным группам.
Propagandan lyckades sprida misstro mot den ukrainska regeringen.
Pro-Russia demonstrators against Ukraine's new interim government.
Russia, they chant.
Russian propaganda was massive on social media. It was massive.
There was so many stories that started emerging on the Facebook.
Cruel Ukrainian nationalists killing people or torturing them because they speak Russian.
They scared people. You see, they're gonna attack, they're gonna burn your villages. You should worry.
Then fake staged news.
Crucified child by Ukrainian soldiers, which is totally nonsense.
It got proven that those people were actually hired actors.
Complete nonsense.
But it spreads on Facebook.
So Facebook was weaponized.
Precis som under arabiska våren användes Facebook för att underblåsa en konflikt, men nu av grupper som arbetade för en främmande makt. Och det med ett verktyg som Facebook byggt för att ge större spridning åt annonser.
By that time in Facebook, you could pay money to promote these stories. So your stories emerge on the top lines. And suddenly, you start to believe in this. And you immediately get immediate response. You can test all kind of nonsenses and understand to which nonsense people do not believe. And to which nonsenses people start believing. Which will influence the behavior of a person receptive to propaganda. And then provoking that person on certain action.
They decided to undermine Ukraine from the inside rather than from outside.
I mean, basically, think about this. Russia hacked us.
Dmytro Shimkov, rådgivare till Ukrainas president, bad representanter för Facebook att ingripa.
The response that Facebook gave us is, sorry, we are open platform. Anybody can do anything within our policy, which is written on the website. And when I said, but this is fake accounts, you could verify that. Well, we'll think about this, but we have a freedom of speech and we are very pro-democracy platform. Everybody can say anything.
In the meeting, do you think you made it explicitly clear that Russia was using Facebook to meddle in Ukraine politics?
I was explicitly saying that there are trolls factory, that there are posts and news that are fake, that are lying, and they are promoted on your platform by very often fake accounts. Have a look. At least send in somebody to investigate.
And no one was sent?
No. For them, at that time, it was not an issue.
Facebook säger att Shimkov inte tog upp frågan om desinformation på mötet och att samtalen saknade koppling till det som hände i USA 2 år senare.
It was known to Facebook in 2014 there was potential for Russian disinformation campaigns on Facebook.
Yes, and there were disinformation campaigns from a number of different countries on Facebook. Disinformation campaigns were a regular facet of Facebookery abroad. And that's, technically that should have led to a learning experience. I just don't know.
There was plenty that was known about the potential downsides of social media and Facebook. You know, potential for disinformation, potential for bad actors and abuse. Were these things that you just weren't paying attention to, or were these things that were kind of conscious choices to kind of say, all right, we're going to kind of abdicate responsibility from those things and just keep growing?
I definitely think we've been paying attention to the things that we know. And one of the biggest challenges here is that this is really an evolving set of threats and risks. We had a big effort around scams. We had a big effort around bullying and harassment. We had a big effort around nudity and porn on Facebook. It's always ongoing. And so some of these threats and problems are new. And I think we're grappling with that as a company, with other companies in the space, with governments, with other organizations. And so I wouldn't say that everything is new. It's just different problems.
Facebook is the ultimate growth stock.
Vid huvudkontoret i Kalifornien höll man fast vid tron på affärsmodellen, trots den annalkande stormen. 2016 fortsatte Ryssland att använda sociala medier som ett vapen. Och polarisering genomsyrade presidentvalskampanjen i USA. Mark Zuckerberg såg att visionen om en öppnare, mer sammankopplad värld hotades.
As I look around, I'm starting to see people and nations turning inward against this idea of a connected world and a global community. I hear fearful voices calling for building walls and distancing people they label as others, for blocking free expression, for slowing immigration, reducing trade, and in some cases around the world, even cutting access to the internet.
Men han såg fortfarande sin uppfinning som en del av lösningen.
And that's why I think the work that we're all doing together is more important now than it's ever been before.